Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sonic Truth Podcast. Our guest today is a songwriter, recording artist, artist relations, A&R veteran, manager, and a visual artist whose fingerprints are all over the independent music world for the last 2 decades. He's discovered artists like Delta Spirit and Nathaniel Ratliff, managed rosters that include Against Me and Case McCombs, and has co-written with Gene Ween, and has released himself 3 acclaimed albums of his own. He has also created artwork for Volcano Choir's debut album, and basically, if it's interesting and involves music, Dave Gadowsky has probably had his hand in it. Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So just off the intro, it seems like you wear more hats than almost anyone in the music industry, right? You have all these different titles. Was that always the plan, or did each role kind of find you in the process?
Yeah, I think it was kind of always the plan, because it's really not that I'm particularly good at any of those things. I'm just interested in them. It's really just like being curious about lots of stuff and like kind of having like lots of different passions and kind of intentionally following that route.
Is there any one of those passions that sticks out more to you than the others? Or is it just kind of changed with the ebb and flow?
Definitely making music. I mean, that's one that stands out, because all the other ones are sort of in service of that, ultimately. You know, like really like on some level, it's like we're all here because of that, whether you're making gear or a label or a manager or whatever, around music. Like, it's kind of funny how it's such a huge industry with so many different areas. And then there's all the things that we haven't talked about, like touring or publishing, there's so many different parts of it, but it all just traces back to how much we love to just, close your eyes and listen to sound coming in. Oftentimes just a 3-minute song or something.
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's a great analogy, the way you put it. Now, with writing songs, you recently worked with Gene Ween, which was his first post-Ween album, Freeman. Yeah. How did that collaboration come about, and what was it like writing with someone who comes from such an eccentric musical world?
Yeah, it's great. I really love working with him. He's probably the most creative person I've ever met. I signed Ween to Rounder Records.
Wow.
And it was kind of a weird signing, because they were like, I was a huge fan of the band, and they needed a new label, and I met with them, and they were like, okay, so, talk to us. What's Rounder all about? Is there anyone like us on Rounder? And I was like, no, not at all. Like it kind of doesn't make any sense at all, but I think that's why we should do it. And they were, I don't think anyone else said that to them. and it totally, I think they liked it. So that's sort of their MO. I remember one time they got offered to play on Letterman, and they passed because it was too, it was too like obvious. Like they
mainstream.
They really wanted to do, what was the guy's name? He was like a Scottish guy with a late.
I think I remember that guy. Yeah.
He went through rehab, I think.
I can picture him, I know, but the later segments it shows after.
Craig
Ferguson.
Yeah, Craig Ferguson.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yep.
They were like, no, can you get us Craig Ferguson or one? Like they wanted to do one of the later, smaller ones. That's sort of like the way that they operate. But it's like, yeah, really creative. And speaking of rehab, that's kind of how that came about. Like, Aaron went through some pretty rough times, and kind of thought like he would never play music again. And I remember hanging out, and he basically just said to me, like, the good news is I'm not dead. The bad news is I don't think I can ever play music again, much less write a song. So that's definitely like Ween is over and music is over. Like that was sort of it. And then for the next couple of years, it was sort of like we just worked together on like kind of getting his sea legs under him and getting him to the point where he could be comfortable playing music sober and then writing. And it actually went pretty well. And like he quickly got like his chops back and his confidence and everything. And then he was able to finally say like, okay, I think we can get Ween back together. And so they were able to play again as a band. And then we formed our own like side project, which ended up being that solo record. So yeah, it was a cool experience.
Wow, Dave, that's amazing. It seems like you played a very pivotal role in helping him, kind of find himself again after the recovery process, because I know how difficult that can be.
Yeah.
Kudos to you for doing that. That's great. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of self-serving because now we get to like see more Ween shows.
Well, it serves everyone, really. Yeah.
I really just wanted to go to a Ween show. Like, what do I have to do? Yeah.
That's funny.
Now let's talk about the late shows, specifically the one with David Letterman in 2008, in which you were part of a Guns N' Roses cover band. Now you guys performed on this show, and you have described it as the worst musical performance in the history of the show. I got to hear the story.
Yeah. I always forget about that. I thought all traces of it had been scrubbed off the internet or something. But so I had this band called Mr. Brownstone that was a Guns N' Roses cover band, but that's really not the whole story of it. It's really like more like Spinal Tap. It's like a cross between a Guns N' Roses cover band and Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's great.
Which is like, I think we played the songs really well and like recreated the sort of like late 80s Sunset Strip GNR. Not that I was there, but like what that must have been like, while also just kind of being silly and having fun. At the time, it involved also getting belligerently drunk.
Yes.
Before going on stage.
Had to play the part, yeah.
You got to play the part, right?
Play the part, yeah. And picking fights with people in the audience and breaking things and just really getting ourselves in trouble. But that's why it worked. It was just very entertaining for everyone. And it was never even intended to really be like a real band. It was just we all went to college together and we were just kind of messing around. And then it somehow just snowballed into something. We ended up playing a gig at the old knitting factory in New York. And then it somehow like sold out. And then we were playing like Bowery Ballroom, and the venues kept getting like bigger and bigger to the point where like we would play a show without rehearsing or lifting a finger, and like 500 people would show up, or 600 like there were like big crowds of people. So we were like kind of it just kind of happened by itself. And then Late Night did a whole week of cover bands. So they reached out because I guess we were kind of known in New York at the time. But the other cover bands were like really good. Like they were like an accurate, there was like a James Brown and a Michael Jackson. They were like impersonators, Yeah. And then we came out and it was just like, where did you find these guys? Like it was clearly not. So that was, I wrote that article about us being the worst band to ever play Letterman, because I was like, I think in a way, I think that's a fair thing to say, because if you're a cover band, you're automatically like anyone making original music is above, you know, like
Right, yeah.
it was a cover band. So like we're automatically at the bottom. And then of those cover bands, we were clearly the worst of the, of the other, you know, of those 5 bands or whatever. So, but you know, it's somewhat tongue in cheek because I think that's what makes it funny.
Well, that's what you were going for too.
Yeah,
you weren't going for perfection. You were trying to create a spectacle, it sounds like. And it sounds like you did, you know? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any footage of that still floating around?
I don't know. It's for some reason, I think I mean, no one ever explicitly said this, but I think maybe they intentionally took it out of syndication and took it off the internet because like there's like no trace of it anywhere. Every now and then it'll come up and I'll be like, oh yeah, where is that? And I'll try to find it myself, like looking it up on YouTube or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. It must exist somewhere.
It's got to show up somewhere. I'll do some digging, see if I could show a clip of it or something if I could find it.
Yeah.
How fun.
I remember we got censored in the first 5 seconds.
Oh, no shit. What song were you guys playing?
It was Welcome to the Jungle.
Fun.
Man.
Yeah.
Now let's get back to the A&R side of things. All right. You've been credited with discovering Delta Spirit, Daniel Ratliff. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing his name.
Yeah, Ratliff. Nathaniel Ratliff.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And Field Report. What did you hear in those artists early on that told you that there was something in there that would spark them?
Just great songwriting. It's like literally 100% of it was just, I was just trying to find people where I thought they had a knack for that thing, you know, that unquantifiable thing that makes a great song that everyone is really chasing, that's at the core of all great music. And those guys all really have it. Yeah, it's funny. I was just listening to Field Report this morning, 15 years later or whatever, since that album came out. And it really holds up.
Yeah, I think that's, I think the industry in the past, in my personal opinion, the last 10 to 15 years has seemed to kind of lost its strength in good songwriters, right? I think the technology has kind of pulled some people in that direction. And we're like, oh, I can just create by pushing buttons.
Yeah.
But reverting back to earlier in our conversation about how important a 3-minute song, can last a lifetime if it's just done properly, right?
Yeah, I think that it makes sense. Like, given where things have gone, the technology and the tools and the platforms and everything, it kind of makes sense to me that that's what would happen. The bottom dropping out in terms of specifically the songwriting. Yeah. And I had a conversation actually with Brian Eno a few months ago, and he had he said something really amazing that I'll always remember, which was like, he was talking about, we were talking about ambient music, and he's literally invented ambient music. And he was talking about how now people can push a button and create what he spent years working on. And I assumed he was saying it like in a negative way, but I was surprised when he was like, and the things that they make in 10 seconds are actually, a lot of it's really, really good. And he was just talking about how so many things are like that, like things that used to take a lot of time and effort and education and knowledge and, all sorts of different things, practice, can be done just way easier and faster. But writing a good song is still as hard today as it ever has been in the history of music. And looking back on songs that were written 100 years ago, 70 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, that really hasn't changed. And no matter who you are or what you're doing, when you sit down to write a song, it's still as hard as it's ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And these extremes that sort of happen, everything sort of pulls back after a certain amount of time. I know, like in the early 2000s, like things got really digitized and everything went a little too far, and then we sort of started pulling back, and we're like, hey, you know, maybe we should start using more analog gear because this doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's not, you know, music is not content. I think that's what a lot of it is, you know, that kind of captures a lot of it, I think, because we're in an age of content and everything is about volume and speed. But, you know, songs are something else. And it makes sense that those physical things and the process and the people and the intention and the moment and all these things are really important, but they're invisible. You know, if someone hears a song or looks at the session in a DAW or something, you can't see that stuff. And so a lot of people don't understand it or aren't aware of it. And AI certainly can't replicate it because no one even knows it's there or even what it is. You know, like, why does everyone like Hey Jude? Like, if you look at the notes and the words,
it tells a story.
Like it's hard to explain why Hey Jude is such a great song, but it is. But, you know, you could put together other notes that have a similar harmonic relation to each other and similar sort of melodic information and lyrical content and play it back. And for some reason, 9 out of 10 people would be unfazed. But for some reason, Hey Jude, 9 out of 10 people are like, wow, this is amazing. It's that invisible thing that, you know, I'm glad it's there because it's what makes, you know, that's the real barrier to entry.
Yeah. You know, and now speaking, you know, about the singers, songwriters, you know, and about how their world has changed in the past 15 years. What would the landscape look like now for artists that are trying to build a sustainable career in that space?
Man, it's tough. That's kind of why I left artist management. I was managing a bunch of artists, and around 2017 or 2018, I don't know, I just felt like kind of disillusioned, and also just didn't know what to do. I mean, before that, there was a time where the way the industry was, the way the music business was, and even like the formats and the economics of it and everything, I felt like I could help. If I could work with an artist and help them build a career and increase that probability of success. But then, I don't know, the way things went, it sort of felt like I don't even know what to do anymore. If I'm managing someone who has amazing songs, it feels like there isn't a path anymore. And I think that's still true in some ways, but I do think it's changing. I think what you're describing is becoming more and more obvious, and people are picking up on it more and more. And then when you see like Spotify adopting AI-generated music, and in addition to a lot of human-generated music is not that different from what the AI is doing either. So there's more and more of a demand for like really high-quality stuff. I think something will change, and like the only advice I would have now, just to, you know, kind of a long-winded answer to the question, is, you know, it's the most boring possible advice, but I think it's the only true advice, that just like people just need to focus 100% on the quality of their music and trying to find that great song and just keep writing and practicing and working and playing. You know, like I think that's, it's not going to ever be like the most interesting revelatory advice for people to hear, but I think, you know, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, it's like the KISS method, right? Keep it stupid simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple,
and
stupid.
just repetition at that point. And like you said, in like the past 8 years, the lanes, the avenues for artists or even songwriters, they have just dispersed in so many different ways that you can't really find that path that had once been there just 8-10 years ago.
Yeah, things are moving a lot faster for sure.
Definitely. And it's affected the consumers. The consumers, 20 seconds of a video is too much for them now. But there is, I believe, on the other side of things, recently at these college graduations, we've had CEOs come to speak about AI, and the entire student body at the graduation is just booing them.
Yeah.
So there is a large demographic in society which is not a fan of AI. And it's going to be interesting to see how this comes about here in the next coming years.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be super interesting. I think that's the best way to look at it, is like, I'm sort of like not on one side or the other really about it. Ultimately, I just really like music. I don't care. The end justifies the means to me. But I've yet, I think it's good to have new technologies and things like this. It's just like anything. It's about the intention and the way that it's used. So like, if someone's, if anyone thinks that like the entire art form of music and songwriting is just going to get replaced by buttons or something, I mean, it's kind of a silly. Anyone who entertains that thought, I don't think really understands what the art form is. So the people who really understand it aren't concerned about it.
No, it's not a bad thing if AI can do generic pop songs, right? Maybe we should be, like you said, be focusing more on the creative human element and really harnessing that. So
or like elevator music or something. Like,
right.
Like there's any music where a human connection isn't really needed. That's not part of what's going on. Then maybe it's actually fine to have it be AI generated, but that's not really, when people who really love music, that's not really what they're talking about anyway.
Yeah, they're looking for a connection, and you can't connect with that,
The human emotion, right? That's translated through the songs.
Yeah. So you were talking about 2017, 2018. How did you get from A&R and doing that to doing what you're doing now with Godowsky Artist Relations?
I went to Isotope. It was a total 180. So I worked doing A&R for labels and managing a bunch of artists and stuff. And then I went to Isotope and took a job there doing artist relations. And their plugins, all their mixing plugins were being used on, Beyonce records and Kendrick Lamar record, like huge albums. But there was no one really like connecting the dots with those people or the industry surrounding it. So like that whole side of the music industry. And I just sort of, discovered this whole new lane in the music industry there, where bridging the gap between the companies that make all the stuff that we use to make music with, and the artists in the industry that are using it. For some reason, there's a real disconnect in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. So helping fix that connection and try to create a healthy connection between the companies and the artists. And by artists, I mean producers and engineers and everything kind of surrounding them. It just benefits everyone. It benefits the artists themselves. It benefits the companies. in lots of ways, marketing, biz dev, everything. And it's just good for music. And it's also like a fun job. It's a good, anyone, I'm surprised it isn't more of an industry.
Yeah, what's crazy a little bit is you mentioned it like kind of like a 180, but in a lot of ways it's very similar to what you're doing with A&R, but just in a different way. Like you're caring for the artist relationship to companies making equipment and leading industry equipment, and then also cultivating that relationship, and just similar to the same way you would with an artist growing, getting their songs out there. It's very it's just caring for the artists and the company in that relationship. I think that's, and one of the things you always say is like everyone's an artist, that like, and it's just a matter of finding the right fit with everything to make that makes sense. So
yeah.
Like you said, that seems like a part of the industry which really hasn't, a lot of focus has not been put on that aspect of it. And I think, with the ever-changing landscape, this is a great opportunity for artists, producers, and engineers alike to kind of help propel their career a little bit more.
Yeah. So I started this business about a little over a year ago. Because what I'm doing now is the same thing I was doing for Isotope. I'm just doing it independently, and I've got a handful of clients, including Audioscape, and I'm just doing that work for each of them. And I was kind of shocked when I first did it that no one else was really doing it. I mean, I'm sure there must be other people. I just wasn't aware of any. Like, it certainly isn't like a common business where like there's other sort of similar businesses. Like when an artist is putting out records, they have a publicist who's the bridge between them and like the world of editors and journalists and PR, and they're getting PR coverage, but this is sort of that, but instead of getting PR, you're getting artists and producers to use the stuff and talk about it. But it's kind of a similar business model. But yeah, it's a little weird to me that it isn't more, that there aren't more people doing specifically what I'm doing.
It's a huge need in the industry because, and a lot of those relationships, they're already there. They're just, the dots need to be connected. Like a lot of times, like they're already using Isotope for, mastering or mixing on, a Beyonce record. So it's just making that connection. So
yeah,
a lot of times, like we as a manufacturer, we learn about just stuff offhand, like out of nowhere. Oh, they use this for the sound design on the Marvel movies. And we're like, okay, I didn't know that. This thing I'm watching has our stuff on it. Like we don't know this stuff, and it's really important to connect those dots. So there is that strong relationship between the artist and the company. I think that it benefits both, and it benefits the whole industry as a whole,
For sure.
Yeah, it really does. Now, are you still performing at all as an artist? Is that still part of your daily routine at all?
I would performing,
or
not
writing,
really.
I could say.
Writing, definitely. I haven't stopped writing or trying to write since I was about 6 years old.
That's awesome.
Which was 40 years ago, exactly 40 years ago. It's just the thing I love to do the most. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be off for 4 or 5 days at a little music writing retreat where I'm just completely off the grid on an island on a lake in New Hampshire.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just working on writing. I mean, I think for me, it's sort of like it sounds a little silly or something, or like, I don't know, like, I think of it almost like a quest or something, like not trying to have a career in music, but just trying to write one really great song. Like when I hear like Joni Mitchell, Both Sides Now, or like Magnetic Fields, Book of Love, or like there's just like there's you know, certain songs that are just like, how did that happen? Like, how did you or you know, anything. You could list off a million, Elliott Smith or Tom Petty or Bob Dylan or, you know, like, it's so deceptively simple. It's so deceptively simple that it can be dangled in front of you. Like, maybe you could do that. Like, you know those chords, you know those words. If
just
you put the right
it's easy, right?
Like, you know, at some point it should be. So like there's this, and I love that idea that like you could spend your whole life writing and, you know, maybe at some point you'll catch lightning in a bottle and write one really amazing song that stands up with all those ones that you love.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself should be enough to motivate you for a whole lifetime. And like, that's also, I think that should be the advice to like, as opposed to thinking like, how do I build a career or make music or make money or whatever? Like, that's the wrong North Star. Like, you know, it's better to just focus on trying to create the thing that you love.
Yeah. Now, your most recent album, Cuts, that was mixed by Chris Shaw, Grammy engineer, and mastered by Emily Lazar, another Grammy-winning engineer. What was it like handing off your projects off to people at this level? And how involved were you in that process?
It's really cool. I mean, I was intentionally not at all involved. Which I think is important and really hard, and it's complicated, but I think people need to learn how to work with mix engineers. And the ideal situation is having a mix engineer that you really trust, who's really good and knows exactly what to do, and letting them do their job and thinking of them as a partner, as a collaborator, and respecting them and trusting them, as opposed to having 100 revisions on each song where the thing kind of, all the edges get honed down and all the things that make it interesting and special get rounded off. And it's really hard to do because sometimes you like with that album, the Cuts album, I remember getting my first couple mixes back from Chris, and I was so excited. I went to listen in the car first. I was like, I'm going to go for a drive and put these on and listen. And like, I can't wait to hear my songs going through the mixing brain of the guy who's made the last several Dylan records and Weezer and all these other amazing albums, Ween and Wilco. He's made so many great ones. So I was just like so pumped. And I put it on, and it was like, I was just like, oh, wait. It just like sunk because it just didn't sound right to me. It kind of sounded bad. And I was like, what is going on? And it was just like this feeling of disappointment. And like, but also I was like, how am I going to talk to like, how do I handle this? What's going on? And I listened a few times and was just like, man, yeah, this is just not it. And so like, I thought about it for a while. I didn't call him, and I thought like, maybe I'll just sleep on it. And then like the next morning I woke up and I listened again, and I was like, you know what? It is kind of cool. It's, maybe it's not, you know, at first I thought it was like bad. Maybe it's not bad. It's just sort of, and then there was like a voice in my head that was like, is there a chance that this like genius Grammy winning mix engineer might know what he's doing? And like, is there a chance that maybe my ears are hearing it weird? And like, sure enough, like I kept listening and started to hear it. And now I wouldn't change a thing, but like, when you're so deep in, you wrote the songs and you went through all different versions of them and tracking them and producing them and spending so much, you're just not hearing it the way that everyone else is. Yeah. So like, if you just want to make a record for yourself, whatever. But if you're making music that you want to contribute to, give to the world, then you're going to have to let go of it and let someone else do some of those jobs, I think.
Yeah, well put, man.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, that artist side is the hardest thing to let go of sometimes, or you get sucked into hearing it a certain way with, like, I guess they call it demo love, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things as an artist to shake, is just that sort of, it's ingrained in you that it's this way, and then you hear it a different way, and it's almost like an immediate aversion to it, no matter how good it might be over time. It's just, that's funny how that works,
Yeah.
Yeah, you become married to your song, right? And then
even without realizing it. Yeah.
And you try to fix things. That's the other, like, we live in an age of perfectionism and narcissism, and everything needs to be optimized and perfect before we present it to the world because of whatever, a million social media type things. But when you listen back to all your favorite music, I guarantee there's little mistakes and weird things and things that seem wrong. And like, you listen to the actual mix on some of the greatest songs ever, and it's not like everything is completely perfect or completely balanced, or oftentimes there's stuff that you don't even notice it because you've gotten so used to it, but you might go like, oh yeah, like, come to think of it, that hi-hat is insanely loud, or like that vocal was clipping right there, or like this was, like, I don't know, sometimes those weird things are what make the song special. It's not a problem that needs to be fixed. Yeah. And if you're too involved with the mixing, at least if you're thinking about it that way, that can be really bad, because you just start fixing everything. And, it's like trimming the hedges, and you keep trimming and trimming and trimming, and then eventually there's nothing left. Yeah.
Yeah, that, I can remember when Pro Tools first came out, and you would hear songs on the radio, and you could actually hear the edit points, like the clips, they're like where the hook is beginning or where the bridge begins, and you could just notice those things as an engineer, and the consumer has no idea. They're not paying attention to that. But that's a great point. A lot of people try to master every little detail, and sometimes it's just human nature. Just let the mistake be there and move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's picking those right flaws, that's like, it's the same thing even to a certain degree. It all roads lead back to music, like you were saying earlier, Dave, but like, it's like picking the right flaws that you want to maybe accent or put out there. And that's the same thing with building hardware or doing what we do. It's like finding, this thing's gonna distort this weird way, and it's gonna sound like, this thing falls apart when you push it, and it kind of sounds a little bit shitty, but like, that's what's kind of cool about it, and like, that's sort of the decisions people make when they're doing, whether they're mixing, whether they're building hardware, it all sort of goes together,
Exactly. That's such a huge part of what is so special and important about Audioscape, is that it's taking oftentimes vintage parts, but specifically just someone, with their own hands putting together a physical unit, and it's a real person who's putting like care and love and expertise into building something where each one is a little different, and it's just that invisible thing that we were talking about that makes music great. It's not just, music is not data, it's not content, it's not about digitizing and making everything into the quickest, easiest plugin. It's about the process. And when you're hearing music, you're not just hearing the music, you're hearing the process. You're hearing the decisions. When you hear someone playing guitar, you're hearing a person who decided to play like that. and you're hearing the mix engineer who decided to mix like that. And so the process is such a huge part of it. So the fact that you can take a piece of Audioscape gear and like, you know, touch a physical knob and having everything right, it makes the process of making music itself an event and an experience and a real process. And you can hear that, you can somehow hear that in the music.
Yeah.
No. And if music was just data, like tubes still wouldn't be a thing, right? Like we wouldn't be using tubes if it was just all just supposed to be
ones
just
and zeros.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hardest thing for ones and zeros to replicate, right? Tubes. And it's because the behavior is just different each time, and there's just way too much variance going on for them to. They have to decide. Okay, it did it this way this one time, and it's going to do it this way every single time. But tubes aren't like that. And that's a special. It's like they have a life of their own.
Everyone looks at the output.
True.
You know, everyone looks at the. You know, they'll do shootouts and stuff and compare this to that or compare the plugin to the real thing. You know, like, I just think everyone is kind of fixated on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, when it comes to Audioscape, I'd say, like, yeah, you can do the shootouts. You can look at the sound of it. Of course, it's going to sound amazing. But, like, that's only half of it. The other half is, like, have you used the stuff? And, like, how it fits into your process as an artist, as a producer, as someone who is embracing the process of making music. Owning and using these pieces of gear just does something so important to the process. And that's what it's really about, you know, much to the chagrin of the Suno or whatever, you know, like that's, but sooner or later, I think people are going to be forced to acknowledge that.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned, you know, you do artist relations for us, you do artist relations for Isotope. What's some of the other companies that you're currently working with? Because I think they're amazing. So,
So I work with Soyuz microphones. They're a really great mic company.
They're amazing.
They were the first microphone company I called when I started the business. I was like, I'm calling you guys first. I want to work with you. Because I try to, you know, I don't want to work with companies that compete with each other. So I really only wanted to work with one mic company. But then I also work with Isotope and, you know, along with them, Native Instruments and Plugin Alliance, since those are all one company. I work with Good Hertz, who are, you know, they make really cool mixing plugins. I don't even think of them really as a competitor to someone like Isotope because their stuff is really, it's all very like one of one. You know, they have that same ethos. They're like the digital version of that ethos where everything is like, it's a small company and they like hand make the plugin. Like they want to make things that are unique and special to the digital format. You know, in a way, they're like, someone might think of them as like a polar opposite of Audioscape, but I actually think it's way more similar than not, because it's like letting it be the best, most pure version of itself.
The approach, yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, for what it is, they're really doing it right. I work with Samply, who are like, you know, Dropbox for music. They're really great. You know, it's lossless audio and gapless streaming, and there's all kinds of, you know, encrypted security and ability to like, it's just the best way to share audio files back and forth.
Yeah, I think we've all tried to use Google Drive for that with very poor results.
Yeah. Eventide.
Oh yeah.
You know, classic.
Yeah.
You know,
huge Eventide fan here for sure. Like, all their classic stuff, and like I've been inside some of their old gear from the 70s and that, and I just just made with intention. Everything back then, you know, it's just.
Yeah, it's the good ingredients. It's the good, like I think of them like a restaurant that's like, you know, Michelin star, whatever. Like if it was like the best restaurant and you go there, but like what's on the menu could be the same thing that you see at other restaurants. It's not that they're serving something you can't get anywhere else. It's just that they are using like the best possible ingredients and the best process and preparing it in the right way. And sometimes like that's still enough, you know, like you can go out to eat and get a great meal. That's something you've had a million times before that you could get at a million different places. But when it's done right, it's just perfect and you wouldn't want it any other way. You know, and I think of Eventide like that. Like they're just, I was using their H90 pedal the other day and talking to someone about it, and they were like, well, what is it? And I was like, you know, it's like a multi-effects pedal. Like it, and they were sort of like, oh, okay, yeah. And I was like, no, but you
like,
need
no,
to use
no.
it. Like, and what makes it special isn't like, oh, well, it's got this knob or it has this. It's not that it has something new, like a new function. It's just that it sounds really good. And like, you know, that's still a thing. It's still possible for something to be great on the back of it simply sounding better than everything else. The same, just like the music, like it's still possible for someone to write a song that's blows everyone's minds, and it's just because the song is so good.
It's yeah, like you said, the recipe, but just like the way they think about the end user. Like there's a lot of companies that don't think about the end user like that. And like I think even you mentioned Brian Eno earlier, he recognized that, you know, immediately with them and just was like, you guys got it. You guys cracked the code. Like this is a perfect, I think it was with the H3000 SE. I could be wrong, but I think it was. And he was just like, this is a perfect device. And I couldn't agree more. It really is. And that's something that is, you know, it's a multi-unit, like you mentioned with the H90, but it's just completely unique and different. And God, how many records use an H3000, Justin? Like, I mean, or
you know,
Dave?
That was honestly, when I built my first studio in Illinois in 96, that was one of the first units I bought was a H3000. And I still shoot myself to this day selling that.
It's
it's like you said, it's unlike anything else in the rack that you have.
Yeah, it's such a versatile tool that you could use in so many different creative ways that really connect with the person using it, and it becomes, and it's a digital device, you know, with some analog signals, you know, going through on the input and out, but like you connect with it, you know.
Yeah.
I love that thing
one
so
of
much.
a kind.
Sure. It's like my analogy to people in comparison of plugins versus hardware, right? There's nothing wrong with plugins. It's all in how you use everything. But don't say you've driven a Ferrari when you've only done the VR of a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Right? So many people are like, oh, my plugin. No, drive the real Ferrari. Then tell me what you like better. And usually 9 times out of 10, people who utilize the hardware are like, whoa, I didn't know it could do this.
Yeah, you push it harder on the front end or different, you know, than it would be just digital in the box, just, you know, there, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just the process. And there's some people where their process is all in the box on their laptop, and they've perfected that. And for them, that's their process, which is cool. Like, you know, for some people, it's like that's their thing. But, you know, everyone's different. And there's a lot of people in the world making music. And for a lot of people, myself included, you know, those physical objects are part of the process, and it's part of the enjoyment. And that stuff shouldn't be taken lightly, because like we were saying before, somehow it comes through in the music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like we want to connect to the music we're listening to, the people creating music want to connect to something as well while they're creating it. So yeah.
Or it's like I remember Ninth Wonder talking about his process in the studio. It was one of those conversations about like what gear you use and all that kind of stuff. And like he was like the first thing he talked about was, I think it was taking off his shoes, or it was like a certain pair of shoes or something. But it was like, it's the same idea. It's like someone might think it's like a joke or not serious or something, but you know, the reality is, if there's a certain pair of shoes you're wearing, or you need to be barefoot or something, and it gets you in the right headspace, that's part of it. Yeah. And that's actually going to have a bigger effect on you making the music the right way and making it sound the right way, because that's part of what comes through. So like, it's like the end justifies the means, you know? So like, if you're taking it to the extreme, a pair of shoes could be an essential part of your rig. Yeah. You know, it's just the way it works. It's a irrational, you know, music is a uniquely human thing. So if people are just looking at the ones and zeros, or, you know, looking at trying to do some kind of null test or something, they're looking at the wrong place. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's like, everyone's got their own ground, their own thing that, like, whether it's sitting on this, I've only written on this one couch or this one thing, like they like,
yeah,
you know, that's funny.
It's kind of like a sports player, right? There's superstitions.
Totally.
You know, I'm going to wear these socks, and if it works, don't change it.
I don't care if they stink. Yeah. I'm going to wear these socks.
Yeah.
Well, as we're coming close to the end here, Dave, man, thank you for taking the time today. I really enjoyed this conversation and your insight on all aspects of the industry. There's some great knowledge out there for the listeners to pay attention to. But before we go, I got to throw some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
All right. Guitar or key? You ready?
I'm going to have a sip of coffee right before the rapid fire. Okay. All right.
Guitar or piano, if you had to choose only one for the rest of your career?
Oh. I guess guitar, only because you can take it more places.
Good choice. Mobility. What is the best piece of music that you have discovered as an A&R in which you wish more people knew about?
Oof. Maybe I'll go with Field Report, because we were just talking about them. Milwaukee, Wisconsin band. This guy, Chris Porterfield, unbelievable songwriter. And he has a band called Field Report. And yeah, they've got some really next level songs, just brilliant lyricists. And the thing I've been chasing after my whole life, he's accomplished it a whole bunch of times.
Well, you do have your songwriting trip this weekend, so
yeah,
count yourself out, my man. All right, and lastly, what is one record that you would play for someone who has never heard folk music before?
Whoa. That's a great question. Wow. Oh, wow. I guess there's just so many different places to start. I might go with, there's an album by Sarah Siskind called Times Square. And she's another one that's just absolutely next level songwriter. She has a good, no exaggeration, like at least 15 songs that I hear and I'm just like, how did you do that? Just like really, really blows my mind. Like on the same level as those people we were talking about before, like the Bob Dylan, Elliott Smith, Tom Petty, you know, the Joni Mitchell, all the best of the best. She has like a ton of songs that do that same thing to me, even though I've heard them a million times. And her name is Sarah Siskind. And her debut album is called Times Square. It's probably 20 years old, 15 or 20 years old. Bill Frisell plays on the whole thing. A lot of it is just her and Bill Frisell. I think it was produced by Tucker Martine. And she's made a ton of great songs since then too. But it's not like folk in the purest sense, but folk is kind of a catch-all for singer-songwriter stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Dave, for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having
taking
me.
it so far away. Maybe if you come to Florida or I come up there, we'll hang out.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 of us in Maine now, so you got to come visit me and Chris.
True.
Yep.
That's true. Well, enjoy your time this weekend in New Hampshire.
Thanks.
Definitely write a hit record.
I
Let us
will.
know how it goes. And we'll continue following your career for your continued success, Dave.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.